Hey, folks, welcome to the Generational Gap. I am Robert, your resident Gen Xer, and right over there is John, our resident millennial. John, how are you doing tonight?
Not terrible. How about that?
Not
Doing
terrible.
moderately neato, if you will.
Hmm, I guess we can take that. I guess we can accept that.
George
Um,
Carlin one. I had to give him credit because he's amazing.
yeah, he
But
is pretty
yeah,
good.
moderately
He
neato.
he was pretty damn cool. We got a couple of people in the house. I see Saint appearing first for the evening. Good evening, bitches, he says, and I believe
Right.
he's referring to you and yourself. Uh, I,
Hey.
I see Elephant Man there lurking around. He's at work, so we'll have to, understand that he may not be in the chat as much. And there's some RRC hitting us in the face. How are you doing
Hey,
tonight,
what's
Mr.
up?
Conservative? It's good to see you.
We got to hang out with him again, man. It's always fun having him around.
I know, but he's more popular than we are.
I know
So
he's too
like
good for us.
I don't know
We
if
can't
he'll
sit
like
at his
invite.
lunch table,
He won't invite us to his clique so much.
right.
He's got his clique.
He'll see
We've
us outside of school, but we can't hang out at the table with
right,
him.
right. It's like
Oh man, we're just
because we
kidding with
don't
you.
we don't have the right backpacks,
That's
right?
right. We're not into the cool fad right now.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Maybe I should get my hair cut in an emo style, and then he'll like me.
Then he'll accept me. Senpai will notice us. Oh
Oh,
Jesus.
so John, what's new with you? How things been going this week for you? Anything fun and exciting?
Yeah, actually exciting. I just rented a storage unit so that I can fit it into a like home gym sort of deal, but obviously not home gym. But yeah, I'm gonna put like a punching bag in there and stuff. Some mats. It's gonna be good. I have my own little gym, so I don't
Have
have to
you
worry so much about
have you got the
going
lady
places.
lined up that you want?
Ha!
What?
Punching bag? What do you
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
That's what I thought. That's what
I
I
was
thought you were
wondering.
going, and I
You
was like,
weren't
I wasn't
sure
a
though,
hundred
right?
percent
You're like,
sure, but
wait, is he going pure misogynistic here,
yeah,
or am I
that
reading
was the
into
line.
this?
That's the only line I could follow that would lead to.
Disavow. Please
Yes,
disavow. Feel
completely
free to
disavow.
disavow. Yeah.
As always, we disavow everything we say. We disavow everything the chat says, and we disavow everything any guests say.
In
So
fact, there's a good chance that none of this is real.
that's true. We're all in a simulation after all.
Hey, I see a little bit of Ron Helton lurking out there. How you doing
Oh,
tonight,
dude.
Ron? Good to see you. Good to see you. So that's about the you. So you have begun going back into some. You said you're doing some getting back into what is it?
MMA,
MMA
yeah,
training.
mixed martial arts, yeah,
Now
pretty
is
awesome.
is that with the goal of getting back into any kind of competition or considering competition, or
Um,
is it just for health because you're getting old as fuck?
a little bit of both. Probably not as much of like the actual getting into fights. I am a little old for that now. Most people's, unless they're like a superstar, most people's career is over by the time they're 30. Um, unless of course with exceptions, obviously. But I mean, I might do an amateur fight here and there. That could be fun.
Yeah,
But
that's
I don't
called
expect
drunk.
to like
Isn't that just drunk at the bar?
no.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a few more rules with MMA. But yeah, so I might do like an amateur fight or something just to test my skills. But I'm not gonna like try and go pro or try and be a champion of anything or anything dumb like that. I'm too old for that now, unfortunately.
Now, I've never really looked into it, but so I know, like, I see when I've watched MMA fights and stuff like that, these are fighters that have training in specific disciplines. So when you go to a an MMA class slash uh, training studio, do you pick specific areas to train in, or is there an overarching that basically teaches you pulls from
um,
different specialties?
it's up to you. I mean, if you're going into like just a gym and you're not planning on fighting, yeah, most of them will have like here's our Brazilian Jiu Jitsu class, here's our Muay Thai class, here's just a boxing class, here's like the one that I'm going to be taking, Intro to MMA. So it's basically like, okay, we're going to bring it all together in this class and kind of teach you the sport more than like each individual martial art on its own. But
Gotcha.
they most of them will have, you can pick a specific martial art or a specific thing to focus on.
Surprisingly enough, boxing is one that I would actually be more inclined to enjoy pursuing. Like karate's great. I used to play around with ninjutsu, or whatever the correct terminology is for it. It was ninjutsu back in the day.
Yeah, ninjutsu. Yeah.
I used to play around a little bit with that whenever I was younger, never actually taking a full-fledged course, that kind of thing. But
Mm.
boxing, I always wanted to. Boxing looked like it would be great fun. Plus, it's great practical application for getting in a fist if you have to defend yourself, that kind of
Somewhat.
thing,
Yeah.
right? Nobody expects you to be like a fucking boxer and just boom, 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 boom.
Well, the thing
The
is,
little
like,
rope a dope.
if when I first met you, if you had told me that you had boxed before, I would have believed you. You
Really?
have like the right kind of build for it. Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, you're older now, obviously, so
No,
I wouldn't
no.
expect you to say, "Oh yeah, I'm doing it now." But if you're like, "Yeah, entered a couple, I had a couple fights, boxing fights when I was younger," I would
Mm.
have been like, "All right, yeah, cool, yeah, I would have believed you."
Yeah, no, all of this was developed through a very specific fighting style, which was, you know, working a farm. It's like
Right.
throwing this, carrying that, doing all of this. Now if you give me two jugs full of water, I'll beat the fuck out of somebody. I'm just saying. Or give me a hoe, I will hoe somebody down. I don't play around when it comes to those farm implements.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's I never really. It was more opportunity, circumstance. Just never really pursued anything like that. Though I do think that some of the black ops training I had kind of makes me capable of defending myself and keeping
Naturally.
from getting killed to death.
Ah.
So John, um, oh, real quick before I say, hey, folks, if you haven't done it, do me a favor. Look right there on your screen, right below our video. You should see one of these. And if you could just do me a favor and click on that, we're doing a test. So we want to make sure that the system doesn't get overloaded when everybody hits the like button all together. That would be awesome and great. And if you haven't hit some of those other buttons, go ahead and hit those too. Except that one that looks like this, because that one, whew, that
That
one's
one
been
doesn't work.
causing real
It's
issues. It
Yeah,
could
it's
throw the whole
broken.
stream down.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. Seawall. The boog was never off the menu, dude.
Right.
It was never off the menu.
Well, here we go. We're gonna, I hate to say it, but we're gonna have that conversation. We're gonna have to talk a little bit about all of this that's going on, as is clear from the title, because this week has turned into a very interesting week around this
Wow.
COVID-stricken
Seawall
country.
really did hit the thumbs down. What a dick.
Dude, that's wrong.
I know. I thought we were cool, man.
I don't understand. What did we do wrong?
I
It's
think it's
because,
just your face.
uh,
Yeah, I understand.
maybe it's because we didn't give him props on his half track. He's back to the half track.
Oh, you got it from the shop. That's right. You
Yeah,
got
he
it
must
back
have
out of the
got that
shop.
back
Yeah.
out. He did put an emoji in, so he knows how to use emojis. Maybe we should give him props for that.
Yeah.
He's very needy, and very temperamental. So, sorry for whatever we did to offend you.
Yeah.
But anyway, so man, this George Floyd thing is. Oh, he
Oh, you
said he,
did? And so somebody else is an
somebody else
asshole.
has
Okay,
already
fair enough.
disliked us for no fucking reason.
Before we even start.
Right?
Wow.
Wow.
I feel like I've
Oh,
made
you
it
know
now.
what? You know what? I wonder if people can do that. Like, because I've had the shows scheduled. Somebody got on there and saw the title of the show maybe and was like, "Fuck you," thumbed it down. No, it's
Well,
not
no, it
enough.
just happened like a minute ago.
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we should get like all clue on them and figure out
I
who
know,
did
we need
it.
an investigation.
Just do an investigation, right?
Like
Um,
a 3 year long investigation that costs
right.
millions of dollars.
If we get the FBI
Inconveniences
involved, it
hundreds of
could go
people.
faster. Uh, so shit's been going down, right? There's a lot of crazy stuff been popping off. And there's It's really in short period of time, so many things, not just the protests, not just the riots, but there's been a lot of other things that have been going nuts in this and really just sprouting up left and right. So, I mean, I want to kind of touch on a lot of different things that are involved because there's a lot of moving parts with this. But don't be surprised if we wind up going off on any tangents in this conversation because
Oh yeah. Well, we do that
there's
anyway.
this is like rife with the ability to sprout weeds and volunteers in the garden. I'm just saying. Uh, it's like for the hoedown comments. Thank you. See, everybody likes a good hoe.
Good hoedown.
Y'all are in the big times now because we got a dislike.
Yeah.
If that's what it takes. All right.
Yeah, getting dislikes is easy, man. You just go on and start insulting people. It's great.
Right.
Saying all the wrong things and you'll get dislikes.
All right. So John, first question for you, a simple question. How much have you like paid attention, watched, or involved
I
yourself
watched
with
that
any
shit
of the
go down
riots?
live yesterday.
How I stayed up till
For
4 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, I was working, so I couldn't do
Right,
that. But
right. I figured you might be.
up until about 7
Okay.
when I had to go to work,
Like before it
like I
got
was
dark
watching.
and like they
Yeah,
actually started
yeah,
really getting too deep into it.
yeah. Unfortunately, but I was
Um,
keeping up with like Twitter on it, and anytime I could, I would pop open Twitter, or the Discord when Company Man was in there making updates and stuff.
so here's one of the first things that jumped out at me. Um, I was trying to watch it, and again, as I said, I went till 4 o'clock in the morning watching.
Yeah,
You know, And throughout that, because I was looking for as many avenues, sources as I could, and I was primarily looking at YouTube. But of course, as we know, the MSM is very prevalent on YouTube, that kind of thing. But MSM, very, very, very minuscule amount of sources or anything to see it on
yeah,
MSM. It was all having that like 98% of it was having to come from boots on the ground with people running Instagram feeds or,
yep.
or into YouTube, whatever. That was a little surprising to me because I would have expected.
I'm not surprised.
I mean, this is major news, right? This is clicks, this is views. I mean, people that you wouldn't normally expect to have
Right.
it were carrying 5 to 10,000 plus people watching this. There was
Yeah.
there was a lot of people actively interested.
Oh
But
yeah.
the MSM, I don't know, a lot of
It's
conspiracy people
it's
out there.
because the narrative is more important than anything. So the narrative must be maintained regardless of their loss, whether it be financial loss or loss of viewership. What matters is maintenance of the narrative. And if you have just random people, streaming it on the ground, and that's what you're feeding from, or if you're sending that yourself, you might see things that go against the narrative. You can't
Now,
have that.
Now, the one of the streams that I was on for quite a while, the stream goes by I think it says smoke and scan. Like he kind of sits around and smokes, but he's got police radio scanners going and listening to the conversations that are going on, and he had them tuned in
Hmm.
over in Minneapolis, and so you're able to hear all of it. And literally at one point, you hear the police say use be careful what you're saying on open mics because this is being streamed on YouTube.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so
Hmm.
so they're aware that they're being watched. Real quick, I'm going to jump in before it goes away in the
Good.
chat.
Hey, real quick though, good. They should always be being watched, and
Well,
always. Anyway, go
watch
ahead.
what they say.
Well, no, I don't care about what they say. I'm just saying they should always be watched.
Yeah. Seawall, real quick, says, here's his 2 cents. He says, the cops fucked up, and assuming there isn't some crazy weird thing that reverses what I saw, I hope they get the highest sentences that can be legally obtained. Now, the protesters fucked up by going riot. Now I hate almost all involved. Okay, that speaks to very common consensus through a lot of people
Yeah.
in this country. It's not to say that it's the majority, but there are a lot of people who feel that same way. Saint says, first and foremost, the copper should be charged and the others involved should lose their jobs. Then back to COL, except that firefighter who was about to open up his dream sports bar. Those fuckers looted his place and then fucking burned it down next day. Fuck those riders. Bring in the NG with shoot looters on site. Orders now. Uh, uh, then talks about the charges because
The
charge was
charges
brought
have
today.
been,
A
yeah,
charge
they
was
have been
brought
revealed.
against the primary offender, Chauvin. I think that's how you pronounce it, correct? Uh,
Sure.
but nothing yet on the other three. Um, and I am gonna. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. But Helton says a business owner in OKC shot a looter the other day. After investigating the murder, they discovered he was growing Mary Jane without a permit, maybe a business disagreement. Now, in this, I think it was the first night of looting in Minneapolis, somebody got shot because they were breaking into and going to loot a pawn shop. So I think it remains to be seen what charges and what ramifications that owner is going to face. But I'm sorry if I'm a private business owner and you're coming through my front door with ill intent. I'm I'm going to be down to defend that store, and as well. I mean, hell, he could have called it self-defense. He doesn't know that they wouldn't come after him, right? I don't know.
Don't think that's how self defense really works.
Well, they're breaking into your business that you're in. I mean, do you know that they're
Oh
coming in to
yeah, okay
loot?
then.
Yeah, he
Oh
was
yeah, no
in the
no, it doesn't matter.
business.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter why they're coming in. Yeah, okay, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he
I
was
thought you were
in
saying
there.
I thought you were saying someone else to go and defend that business.
No, 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 no. He
Okay,
was
yeah,
in.
yeah.
He shot. So it
Yeah,
remains to be seen
100%. No,
if
no, no,
and how
100%.
he might
That's
be charged in this.
he
But
shouldn't be charged for anything.
you know,
They broke into his property. That's it. They forfeited their lives. That's 100%. That's it.
even though it was a business, not his home,
Yeah,
correct?
100%.
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's
Uh,
his property.
so what I have noticed, though, one of the biggest takeaways I have from all of this is the sheer amount of conspiracy that quickly sprang up and now is orbiting all of this that's going on. And I mean, you see, and it's coming from all different angles. Okay. One of the first ones that I saw this on Stephen Ignoramus's show. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. And I highly recommend you buy his album that he's got out there because it's some
I
good
bought it. Yeah,
music.
it's awesome.
He
Yeah,
did give me permission, so coming up in the near future, we'll play some clips from that. He gave me permission to use some clips from the music and help, if I want to
nice.
help promote it, because I am a fan of promoting new artists.
Yeah, he's older than me,
Yeah, don't tell him I said that.
but younger than you, of course.
But so one of the first things that I saw about conspiracy theories, so there is a conspiracy theory going around that all of the entire incident with George Floyd was faked from the beginning. That
Yeah,
like
that's garbage.
he wasn't killed. Some
Yeah, that's
speculation that it
garbage.
was an act that they had he was an actor. And they point to different things. Now, I'm not giving a lot of credence when they start doing the numerology shit, where they're
Oh
like, and
God,
the
yeah.
Illuminati stuff. But and I also debunked. There was another part in the one that he was looking at that basically it had highlighted the tag on the police car because on the tag it said police, and he's like, look at that vanity plate. I mean, how many police have vanity plates? Well, a simple Google search of images for Minneapolis police cars will show you that they all do. And many police cars around the country do the exact same thing. It's just another way to say, I'm a police vehicle,
Yeah,
right? You know, but anyway. Um, but little things like, uh, like the badges, his badge, Chauvin's badge versus the badges of the other guys don't match up. They don't look the same. I'm like, okay,
yeah.
camera perspective can fuck things like that up. Then also what was the other thing? was that when he was taken away from the scene, being George Floyd, when he was taken away from the scene, he was put in the back of a police SUV, not an ambulance. Now, I don't know. I didn't see this
I
one way
didn't
or
see
the
that
other.
either.
I haven't heard anything else to this, but this was another thing that they pointed out, indicating that, it wasn't a legitimate thing because an ambulance would have been forced to take him to the hospital, but they already said that he showed up at the hospital but was dead when he was put in the ambulance, basically.
Hmm.
So okay, so that I can, but now
Yeah, I don't know anything about that. I don't know.
but now there's also conspiracy narrative coming from the rioters and the protesters,
Yes, I heard
um,
this. Yeah,
right? So they're
the
saying that
Umbrella Man.
right? Like go look at some of the buildings that were torched, that were on fire. If you look, there's, one was saying today, there's triangles cut out. These kids did, and she's like, these kids didn't have the know-how or the wherewithal to be cutting triangles out to induce accelerants, this kind of thing. Okay, we'll wait till the fire rules on this. If we can trust what they say, that they haven't been bought off by the police, whatever, the bureaucracy, as it were, that there were fake cops walking around
Yeah, that part I
breaking
heard.
breaking windows and taking
Yeah,
part in
that
that.
part I heard about. The Umbrella guy. He's a demon. Because he was in the same picture. When JFK got shot, like he was standing on the sideline. I've heard that.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and it's not surprising that these things happen. And I've seen some video. I think in Jay Edgar's Discord channel, on his server in one of the channels, somebody posted a picture of a guy, and he had the uh, the FBI cord, like the earpiece, the little spiral cord that you'll see come down where it
Yeah.
attaches. And I'm like, okay, those aren't hard to get a hold of for somebody who's doing anything related to this, what we're doing, et cetera, et cetera.
Hmm.
And he could have very easily been, just a plant to report what's going on, but not
Not
like
doing
actively
anything, right?
stoking the fire.
Right.
And
And
the
it could just be a person who's working with another person to loot, and they had communication.
right,
So one could be looking out, the
right,
other one's in there, and say, "Hey, cops are coming! The
right,
big crowd coming! Get out!" And they get out. You know what I
because
mean? Like that's absolutely something that
because
someone would think of.
I've actually looked into buying an earpiece like that to get something along those lines to work with a phone back, before they were doing the,
The
now all the
AirPods and stuff.
Bluetooth and
Yeah.
wireless shit. Um, but see now, Seawall says some of the initial fires were likely set by an outsider, neither police nor local protector, rioter, likely someone who wanted to spread chaos.
And that
Um,
could also be, yeah, it could just
yeah,
be a random person that, just
right. It's
wanted to
possible.
light that spark,
Well, this
light the
was
fuse.
something that was noticeable and prevalent in listening, to people talk. There were a lot of people that weren't from Minneapolis showing up
Yeah.
to take part in all of this. And it's like, you know what? The moment you are, people from outside the community are showing up, all bets are off. It's
Yeah.
probably going to turn violent because what have they got to lose? It's not
Right.
their
They don't have
home.
a right. They don't have a vested interest in that community.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, but how much credence do I give it? I'm not sure. I don't know.
I give it
Um,
little, like 3 out of 10, maybe credence. Obviously it's a possibility, but I think that there are other simpler explanations.
right. And here's a simple explanation. Like the video that showed the guy, he's in a gas mask and a black jacket with his hood up
Yeah.
and everything, walking and breaking glass. And the little kid, there's a young person there who's like, "Hey, are you a cop?" During the little snippet of video. Well, look, if I were a cop and I'm trying to get intel from on the ground, because if you look at how he breaks the windows, it's kind of like half-ass, where he's just like, I'm breaking windows so I can look like I'm a part of all this and see what's going on here on the street in and
Hmm.
amongst the craziness, right? I could thoroughly see that more than I necessarily buy into, um, this whole idea that even from the get, all of this was a conspiracy that it was designed to create these riotous situations
Yeah.
that would somehow lead to what? What is the end goal in
Well, the end
create?
goal is being able to gain more power for the state. Obviously, you can say, "Oh, it's a state of emergency. We need to," you know. You were talking about in the Discord earlier about martial law, things like that. If you enact martial law, and then when the situation's over, you can roll that back, but you don't have to roll it back all the way. And that's the point, right? And I'm not saying I agree with this. What I'm saying is this is the end goal that, from that perspective, you would see that they don't have to roll back the martial law all the way. They can maintain curfews for a little while. They can um would have gained like a more executive power for the governor in order to call the military faster in situations like that. There's power gains to be had there.
Sure.
Now, I think it's more opportunistic than it is some kind of plan, but I mean that's just a matter of perspective.
I mean, if I were going to see it as a power gain, someone working for a power gain, I would not look for it to be happening on the local level. I would expect something like that to come from a much higher level. Especially, if it were going to happen, I would
I mean
expect
it's
it would
all
be orchestrated by the feds,
I
by
mean it's all
the
power.
administration.
It's all power, and everyone who has it wants more of it. Not
Well,
everyone has
right.
ultimate power. Even people with just a little bit of power want more.
I mean,
It's
if
just
there
the
was
nature
any
of
kind,
power.
but if there was any kind of power grab going on with this, Trump has had the ability to step in and institute martial law in that city, in those two cities, since like the first night, because it hasn't been under control.
But who's the governor
It doesn't
of
matter.
Minnesota? No, 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 it does, because that can be part of the plan, right?
Oh, well, that's true, but he's a Democrat, I
If
think.
he if he is a Democrat, I'm not sure. I can look it up in a second, but if he is, then that would make sense. We got an election coming up. He can point to it during the any kind of debates, be like, "Look how terrible these governors have been in handling these crises."
Right.
But I'll check real quick.
No, when it's all said and done, I don't think there's some deep conspiracy to, to create this idea, you know, somebody's behind this. I'll be honest with you. I will honestly say I think it's more of a distractionary method and a justification for action by those on the ground actually doing the rioting. Like if we can say that somebody, if we can find ways to show that somebody else was responsible for instigating this, there we go. We're okay. It wasn't our
Okay, his
fault.
name is Tim Walls.
Tim Walz, Walz, correct?
Yeah,
Now I remember because he got called out on Twitter last night. We'll talk about that in a moment. But
I'm trying to find his like anything that says.
should say it right in his Wikipedia. There's bound to be a Wikipedia.
Yeah, right here. Da, 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 da. Yeah, he's a member of the Democratic Farmer Labor Party (DFL).
hmm Yeah, because
Um,
because remember, every state that had a riot was a Democratic state.
well, let's see.
It,
I
this was
mean,
this
he,
was narrative going on. Good God, so much chat going on through all the shit last night on
yeah,
YouTube
yeah, yeah,
channels,
yeah,
right?
dude. Other than ours, chats are cancer. YouTube chats are cancer,
Right.
except for ours,
But
of
you
course.
but you get to see all of these thoughts that are going on.
Not real. I wouldn't even say thoughts. Most of the
Well
time, it's just people throwing up whatever thing they think of. They're just shit posting most of the time. Like it's
well
not something
but
we're taking seriously,
well
except for our chat. Our chat is awesome, and we take them seriously.
I guess what I'm
But other than that,
I guess what I'm trying to say is the amount of people who are sharing similar thoughts, whether it be about the conspiracy stuff or whether it be
see, the
anti-black agendas, etc.
the Minnesota Democratic Farmer Labor Party is a political party in the U.S. state of Minnesota. It is affiliated with the U.S. Democratic Party, formed by a merger of the Minnesota Democratic Party and the left-wing Minnesota Farmer Labor Party in 1944. DFF is one of the only two state Democratic Party affiliates of a different name. So he is a Democrat.
Oh, Seawall is saying that he says, "Oh fuck, the autopsy has been released. No,
Same.
no physical findings that support a diagnosis of traumatic asphyxia or strangulation. A combination of force and health problems contributed to death."
Hmm.
So force gets to fall on Chauvin's shoulders, but it will it potentially nullifies any murder charges and will relegate this to manslaughter because that still has to
That's
be a
what I was thinking.
consideration.
And I even said that earlier that I think it's going to be brought down to just manslaughter.
Negligent homicide might be the other alternative as well, as Seawall says.
Yeah.
The question I have, Seawall, since you're looking at that, I don't know if you want to shoot us a source, but drugs that this might, i.e., George
Yeah.
was ODing.
I don't think that
Also possible
is all
toxic.
that relevant.
Hold on, he says also possible toxicant, not in but toxicant,
Right.
i.e., he may have been ODing. So
Right.
that was what some had thrown out there. Now, again, as I've said before, is that the autopsy coming from the the corner there locally, or do we also have a corroborating report from the FBI? Because unfortunately, this is going to be one of those situations where one opinion, one source is not going to be enough for people to admit that it's right. And they still might, even with multiple sources, but still, I think two sources is going to be better
Oh,
than
here we
one
go.
in this instance.
I just got it from Seawall.
Okay, so why don't you pull that up and.
Wait. Oh, it's just a screenshot of a tweet.
Oh, who put the tweet out?
Let me see. I just because I closed it.
He says it's from chart.
David Bignaud. I don't know.
He says
I
it's
don't know
from
who it is.
charging documents that were reported by CNN.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen that if those had come out or not because I do want to get my hands on those and take a look at just to see how they lay out the events that happened, or most specifically the evidence that they have and what they're going to be working with. Because that was, of course, something that he said today was, that there's evidence. There'll be evidence in the statement once that's released and finalized and released. Um, Look, it's obvious that the cop was in the wrong. But what I'm most concerned about is that there's going to be little appeasement for the people in this community. They've only charged him. They haven't brought the others up on any
Right.
charges, even though they say we expect there will be to stop rioting. Right.
Yeah.
But then, okay, so then they make arrests on these three guys. But if they don't bring the right charges, then we're left hanging again. They may not stop because I was listening to a woman after they were announcing that they brought charges. It was a little clip, and she said, "We will not rest until all four of these officers are arrested and charged and convicted." And I'm like, okay, what do you mean by will not rest? Because you need to put this other shit down because there's only so much a city's going to take.
Yeah. People are gonna start dying soon for sure. I know that some people have already died, but I mean, like, it's gonna be a lot more. People are not gonna put up with it.
And you've now you said that would you classify yourself as on the fence about this or full on support of the riots? Where do you find
No, I
yourself
mean,
on that?
I'm kind of on the fence. For reasons that I explained on the Discord, so I'll put them out again here. Well, obviously, I'm not for the destruction of private property. That is the worst, thing that's happened during the riots. Obviously, just during the riots itself was the destruction of private property. Um, However, I think that something like this needed to happen in order to kind of to bring more not only awareness but like motivate people to take action on things like police brutality. And unfortunately, a lot of the reason why people don't, and I even had the same reaction when the story first came out, is that there's so many times that something will be caught on film, by like a cop interaction with the cop, and it'll get blown way out of proportion. It'll be full of lies. Oh, this cop pulled me over just for whatever reason. When meanwhile they were just running from a store while shoplifting. They called the cops on them and they pulled them over down the road. Those kind of things happen so often that it's the boy who cried wolf story.
Hmm.
It's just this time there was actually a wolf,
Uh,
but since they said they cried wolf every other time, it's hard to believe them right away. So obviously, police need to be held accountable when they actually do something wrong. But the thing is, when you're, constantly saying they're doing something wrong when they're not, to believe.
yeah, I mean,
So I
it,
mean, yeah. So again, this kind of needed to happen, even though I disagree with it happening. If that
right.
makes sense.
Real quick, Saint says he thinks the medical examination was hired out by family, which I hope it was.
Yeah.
For the family's sake, hey, that's good. If you've got your own private source that we can hope isn't going to be corrupted along the way, awesome. Um, Seawall says they are doing an additional autopsy. The first one was from the local coroner, then fed her family, then again fed her family. So it looks like we may wind up with three different autopsies
I
on
hope
this,
so.
and hopefully they'll all come to the same conclusion.
Right.
He said also, Seawall says the message of police brutality would be lost the second cops start getting killed,
It's true.
right?
100%. Yeah.
Um,
100%. That's
uh,
true.
Helton says too much power and even less accountability, which is
Yeah.
absolutely true to a certain extent.
100%. No. hundred
Um,
percent.
well, okay,
Which is why I said earlier, like good that people were listening in to the scanners because yeah, you need to be able to listen to what they're doing. What I mean, I'm sorry, isn't the thing, if you're not doing anything wrong, you don't have anything to hide, right?
right.
And these are civil servants. I mean, yeah, I don't want to listen to what they're saying in their house, when they're off duty, but when you're on duty, you're a civil servant. You have
Well, I can listen to these arguments all day long, and I can agree about, the accountability and the responsibility. Um, but I will say this. From an accountability standpoint, not every police officer needs to be held accountable for actions because they don't take actions that are outside what is expected from the uniform.
Yeah, of course. I'm not
Right?
saying like punish every cop or
No, no,
anything.
no.
Of
But
course not.
that's not necessarily the attitude of the
Yeah.
protesters and the rioters. All cops need to be held accountable for the actions of one or four, right? They're all to blame.
It's
Um,
because yeah, sorry. It's because they've racialized police officers. And that's a racialize is a very it's a postmodern like progressivist term,
oh, I get what it means.
intersectional term. So obviously, I'm explaining just in general though.
Oh no, please, no,
Um,
I got you.
that yeah, you don't have to be a race to become racialized.
All right,
It's just about putting a group of people together as like a collective,
right,
and it's how all leftist ideologies function is by collectivism. So it's all like this group does this group does that.
right.
It's stereotypes and just
In this, it's
I guess stereotypes
the
basically.
blues
Yeah,
against the blacks.
right,
Is what it comes
exactly,
down to.
right,
Um,
yeah,
so this and that touches on an interesting point to me, for me, is that this idea of, I think it's been referred to in different ways, but like the blue wall, right? Where cops have each other's back, right? And so
well, that's the
all
thin blue
cops are,
line,
or
right?
the thin blue line, whatever.
Yeah, which
Okay,
actually comes from an old British Empire tactic that they used with muskets and stuff. They had the thin red line,
right.
so it was everyone standing in one very long line, shoulder to shoulder, instead of in rows,
Hmm.
so that they can get all their guns to bear. And
Right,
cannon only hit one person instead of
right.
five, six, eight, 10. Very smart. Just want to say
So
that that's where that came from.
So, but this this kind of mentality. This is not a mentality that is only shared by the police, right? So if you're in the military, guess what? You've got a very solid wall there because you've got people that are looking out for you and that you're looking out for them. Somebody's got to have your back because,
Yeah, of course.
your wartime, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So, you don't turn on your brother in arms, right? And the
Yeah.
same can be said for police, you
Yeah,
know.
of course. They're heavily militarized.
Eh,
I mean, they really are.
But what gets overlooked is that the same thing applies to criminals.
Oh yeah.
Because there's absolutely
Well,
a very look, you go into a high crime area, and just as well as I do, you go up and you ask some kid, you know what do you know about this? They say, they get, I ain't saying shit. I ain't saying shit.
yeah,
I ain't
yeah.
talking about no
You'll get
snitches.
that.
Snitches get stitches. Snitches
Yeah,
get
yeah, yeah.
stitches. Right. This is that criminal mindset.
Well, the
Snitches
thing is,
get
they're like that on
stitches.
the street, but once you put them in the interrogation room and
Sure.
there's, a high
Maybe
stress situation,
they may
not all
crack.
the
Right.
time, not all the time,
They
but
may
yeah,
crack.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
But it's
Or
the
they might just be like on the street, even just be like, looking around. All right, no one's around. Hey, here's some bullshit happening. Forget what I
right,
have in my pocket. Like, is there something going on over here? Go check that out instead.
right,
And they'll ride on somebody to save themselves. It's a
right.
lot different in that way.
And it's
Yeah.
and it trust, right? It's
Yeah.
having each other's back. It boils down to trust. Yet it is, it's how it's painted in the picture is that it's bad for cops to do it because
I mean, to
it
an extent.
it's bad for cops to do it, but even though this is the same mentality that we live our lives by, it's bad when cops do it if they, because every time a cop arrests a blue arrests a black, it's bad. They shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Um, and this is what which continues on. That I arresting a black person is bad. There's so many avenues with that. I listened to the same woman that I was talking about earlier. It's like until something's done about the economic strife that we're kept in and the oppression that we're held under. And I'm like, wait a minute. You're telling me in this day and age, 60 plus years after civil rights, affirmative action,
Yeah.
where we have equal opportunity employers, we have the whole 9 yards, there are opportunities out there. You're still telling me that the only way for your community to get back on its feet is if everything is handed to you.
Yeah, it's extremely condescending, extremely degrading to those people, first of all. I mean, I don't know how you wouldn't be offended by, people saying that.
And this isn't a
I mean,
black.
that's
This
fucking
isn't about.
ridiculous.
This isn't about a specific race because there's in these low economic areas there's a mix of races,
Oh yeah.
but they're all low income. But this idea that a city or a state or a government should feel responsible to reach a hand in and give them enough money to elevate them out of that, bitch, go move out. If it's this that's keeping you down, so much so that you've got to collect as a mass and try and destroy it to make a point, then
Yeah.
get the fuck
I
out.
don't I don't know that it's always that easy, especially if you're taking Section 8 vouchers and stuff. You get they
Why
don't
are
you
you
don't get to
taking
pick where
Section
you
8
live.
vouchers when
I'm
jobs are
not listen, I'm
available?
not
Right,
making mis I'm not
right. No, no,
I'm
no. I'm
making
just
their
I,
argument. I'm not
I'm making that
that's
argument to them though. It's,
yeah.
it's more the you I'm speaking of.
Yeah.
Why are you taking these handouts when there are job opportunities, there are educational opportunities that are made available to you? I mean, you talk about wanting to be picked up out of this poverty as opposed to working your way out. It falls to the outcome. What is it? The equality of outcome is what they want, not the equality of opportunity. Is that am I saying that right? Because they want equality in outcome. They want
Yeah,
to
yeah.
have the money and everything, but they don't see the opportunities that they have because ultimately everything that you say will keep you down, you can fight back and win. I mean,
Yeah.
sue the shit out of somebody if you think they didn't give you a job because of your race.
I mean,
Sue them.
that's extremely hard to prove.
Sure.
That's the problem with that kind of legislation. It's
It
extremely
takes
hard to
work.
enforce.
It takes
Yeah.
some work to do that, right?
It takes a lot of money to, make sure you have a lawyer that can do it and the time. Because when you get a lawyer, you put them on retainer, you pay them X amount, what per week or per month, depending on what the on the agreement. If you don't have that kind of money, then and if you're not, if you don't have a job, you probably don't have that kind of money. It's extremely hard to enforce that sort of thing, which is why it's ridiculous, of course.
I mean, it brings into question the numbers game. I will always see this as a numbers game. If you are a low socioeconomic area, guess what? Low income is generally going to be a higher crime area because people are
Of
committing
course, yeah,
crimes
yeah,
to get money, et cetera, et cetera.
right,
And if your primary racial deviation is one particular race in a high crime area, guess what? You are going to be the majority of arrests that are made. It's just a numbers game. And guess what? If police brutality happens and you're in the larger percentage based off those numbers, guess what? It's just like the lottery. There's a better chance that the brutality is going to happen to someone of your
right,
race. It is a simple numbers game
yeah,
that gets overlooked, and except for the fact that the blame
well,
is laid on someone else for three
right.
oppression
It gets
and
overlooked on
racism.
purpose. That's why it's overlooked. I mean, um, yeah. Seawall's right over here when he says also the Dems never stopped being the party of Jim Crow and racism. Right. They're keeping the blacks under control by offering them free stuff, which of course keeps them poor and guarantees that they'll vote Democrat forever. That's what it's called when people say the Democratic plantation. That's what they mean is incentivizing any people of color, but mostly black people, to vote for them by promising more and more handouts, and then of course that makes people remain poor because you're only getting government money,
Mhm. And
and
you
then
become complacent.
you become complacent, right? And then you have no motivation to move upwards or even outwards. Just why not? I'm surviving. I got food. I got a place to live. I
You'd
got
think the high crime
electricity.
in the area would make them want to move out, right? You'd
Yeah, I
think.
mean, a lot of people do want to move out, and there are problems with that. And very low income areas, you don't have a lot of businesses around, so means you have to travel outside of that area to get a job, which means, of course, having a car, to a reliable car for one. So that's more expense, and you need a job to pay for that car, but you need that car to get a job. You know what I mean? It's
Now, I I will always say this.
it is tough to break that cycle, but it is absolutely possible.
I have seen I have seen exceptional people in low economic situations that go above and beyond to try and get themselves out of that because they do follow the opportunity. They do put the work in. Like, you know,
Yeah,
reading a story about a kid who was walking 3 miles to work every day and
yeah,
back home after long shifts
yeah. I
for
did that for a while. Yeah,
multiple years, and turn around and eventually his boss was like overwhelmed when he realized just what this kid was going through just to maintain a job, just to make money to take care of his mother, this kind of
hmm,
thing, and wound up buying him a car. And it's like these things happen. Now that's not like the end result he was looking for, but he put in the effort, and he was
yeah.
trying to create a situation that would get him and his mother out of there. He was
That is
trying to
one
go to
hundred
school.
percent. That is 100% commendable. Yeah.
Hugely commendable. And
Hell yeah.
then I have to ask, okay, then why? Why possible for anyone else to do that? Are you relying on your complacency? Are you
Yeah,
just
that's what it is.
wallowing
It's
in it?
complacency, and a lot of it is generational, right? Like if you grow up in a household that's been on food stamps your whole life, and other, Section 8 or whatever other kind of government programs, that's what you know. And that's even tougher to break out of that mentality you and shaped you as a young person. So it gets extremely difficult to break out of that.
Right. And Ron Helton says this is not a race issue. It needs to be about holding police, their trainers, and the government accountable for abuse. And that is
Yeah.
absolutely correct. Um, but as much as the police need to take responsibility for that, on the other side of the coin, people need to take responsibility for their own actions, for their own, to quit sitting around and blaming anyone else for where your life is at. You
Yeah.
are in control of that. There,
Right.
I'm not going to say there's not a small percentage of people that cannot move past that for
Of
whatever,
course.
maybe
Yeah, yeah. Will
mental,
there be like a physical
physical.
or
Right,
mental disabilities? Sure.
right.
With those exceptions, yeah.
The,
Assuming you're an able-bodied, able-minded person, you
right.
can get out of that. Yeah.
There are open doors of opportunity out there. But, I think back to things like, okay, you know, in the 60s, they're fighting against segregation. But still, to this present day, these, lots of different groups self segregate. I mean,
Yeah.
you've got a Chinatown or an Asian district. You've got the African American part of town, the Hispanic part of town,
Yeah.
self segregating. That's
Yep.
not somebody's fault. That's your choice. If you want to continue living there, that's your choice. But this oppression that
Yeah,
this
I mean,
is,
cool. Good. So hang on with the segregating in different parts of the city or whatever. Um, there is some legitimacy to the redlining
sure,
thing, but I don't think it applies as much now
no,
because it's been enough time since redlining was made illegal that people have grown up and who were born after that and are able to get out.
right.
And I mean, you do see that,
Every
but not
town,
nearly as much.
every a low income area,
Of
and
course.
there are, yeah, there's going to be a mix of races there. It may, whatever section it might be, it may be predominantly of one race, but still, you know, you don't have to say, there's nobody's forcing you to stay there, right? Nobody is saying this is where you have to live. The only thing that matters is the money, and I get it. Okay, well, did you get your education? Did you go and apply for the jobs?
Yeah.
Did you go to college? Did you work and put yourself through college or find scholarships? I mean, how many scholarships? There's so many scholarships that go untapped because people don't put in the footwork to just get the money that's laying
Yeah.
around out there. There's a lot of money that gets laid around out there by companies and all sorts of
Dude, they're
corporations.
trying to give you money. Like
Right.
they're trying to.
I mean,
Yeah.
especially knowing that as a minority, federal money is so much more available to you than the average person.
Yeah.
Any other person. It's insane to me that it is always going to be somebody else's fault. But this idea that something needs to be done, like, we're never going to be happy until someone comes in and solves this problem for us, these economic issues for us, and betters our lives. Well, fuck you. It's on you to better your life. I don't care who you are. I mean, I could sit here and I could bitch and moan about the opportunity. I would have been a great football player, John. Didn't have the opportunity. I know I would have been. I'd have made a great fucking running back because I was a quick little fucker as a kid. Didn't have
Yeah.
the opportunity. Didn't get the proper opportunity.
Right.
But I could have made it happen, and I didn't.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
I,
same
I
thing with me. We opened this episode talking about, doing mixed martial arts. I was doing that when I was 16, 17, 17, 18.
mhm,
Like, and I stopped doing it. I could have started, like, I had three amateur fights. I could have kept going and got scouted for one
right.
of the lower leagues and gone up to
Who
professional
held you
fighting.
down, John? Who held you back?
I did.
Right.
Yeah, I
you
did.
know, th-
I got a, Well, first of all, I got a girlfriend. Shortly after that, I was having a hard time managing my time between the two, and so I chose, the girl over because MMA doesn't suck your dick. You know what I mean?
Right.
But so I did that, and I started like smoking weed a lot more and drinking, and then smoking cigarettes, and then it just kind of snowballed from there, and I quit. And then yeah,
Right.
so yeah, it was me. It was all my fault. That no one did anything to me for that.
It's like Seaball says. Not only is Fed money easier to get, it's easier to get into school as a minority. Yes, it's true. And when
Yeah, it
it's
is. Yeah,
but on the flip side, Fed money is easy to get from the other standpoint of a handout.
it's even
And
easier. In
and
fact, you
and
don't have to do any work.
right, and that's the complacency. That's why you don't see people wanting, trying to get out of these neighborhoods, because when it's all said and done, it comes down to this: if you can get access to free money and crime pays well enough,
Yeah.
why am I going to go work?
Buy weed from a guy who did that. He got all the government, welfare, and then he just sold weed on the side to get his extra money.
Right. I don't. I'm not saying that everybody in these neighborhoods are criminals. What I'm saying
No,
is the ones that are committing the crimes,
and
they're
yeah, see, well,
probably
that's
not working.
100% true. Hang on, see, well, it's 100% true. Yeah, I am weak-willed. That's why I did that. That's why I made those choices.
And that's what it comes down to. What effort are you willing to put in? Um, you know, if you have a dearth of opportunities in front of you, I don't care what color your skin is, they're
Yeah,
there, and there are so many systems in place to protect your ability to pursue those opportunities.
yeah.
I'm not going to stroke your dick and tell you that you can be want to be. What
No,
I'm
that's
telling you,
that's something you tell children.
you can
Yeah,
be
you don't
anything
tell an
that you're
adult that.
capable of.
Right.
And that's what it boils down to. So, when I see these people that were in the riots and they're hollering and arguing these inane points, I'm like, you know what? Don't come at me with your 300 years of oppression and pretending like you have any fucking concept what a slave went through back in the fucking day. You don't know shit about that. Not standing there in your fucking Jordans and your low rise jeans and bouncing around and having your good times. Yeah, you have no idea how many people I saw running around with booze in their hands because they fucking raided a liquor store. But I'm like,
Yeah.
you can't stand there with in that way and tell me that you're oppressed. You don't know fucking oppression compared to your ancestors. If they're even
Yeah.
if you're still tied to those ancestors in your family line,
Right.
you know and then they start making this argument about Africa and bringing our people from Africa, and I'm like, okay, but you're not going back to Africa, are you? You don't want to go there, do you? You
I
want to
mean, they
stay
probably would have
here in
ended up
this
here
oppression.
anyway. Yeah.
You want to stay here in this oppression, not that oppression.
Well, not only that, but millions of people every year come here for this oppression. Like,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Because surprisingly enough, you go to the wrong places in Africa as a black individual, guess what? You might get killed.
You might get oppressed.
Right?
Yeah, you might
By
find
other
out what
black
oppression
people,
is.
right? I
Yeah,
mean,
you might find out what real oppression is. Yeah,
what? Yeah, that's the real. So
yeah.
I don't want to hear this anymore. I don't want to hear about your oppression.
No, you're gonna.
Not when a government has kowtowed to to the wishes of minorities for the last 50 to 60 years, bent over backwards. And, and you want to talk about racism? Well, it's the very policies that you have to rely on that are available to you to protect you in seeking those opportunities. It is those very established policies that keep racism alive in your present day.
Hmm.
So there's your fucking trade-off. If you want it to go away, you want the racism to go away, let's start by taking away one of the primary vehicles of that racism. Now, I might be on a little bit of a rant about this, but it does get me hot.
Yeah. No,
You
I mean,
know,
and I haven't interrupted you much just because you're 100% right. I
you
mean,
know,
yeah.
and I'm sorry that it has to. most of this is actually directed at the African American community. But again, it's not at everyone in the African American community,
No, of course
because
not.
there are, just like there are good cops versus and bad cops, there are perfectly legitimate opportunity seeking African Americans out there that do well for themselves, that
Yeah.
make the efforts, that strive to get ahead. But don't come at me and tell me, well, I ain't got a job and I ain't got a car and I don't make any money, and it's because I'm oppressed. Fuck
Right.
you.
It's
Fuck
easier to
you,
say
sir.
that. That's
I'm
why
sorry.
people say that.
Yeah.
And not just black people, it could be anybody, any kind of, any one of these idpol, groups that, are seemingly oppressed. It's so much easier to just like say I'm oppressed and it's someone else's fault than it is to actually take responsibility yourself and actually do something to get yourself out of it.
Look at that seawall, extra spicy seawall tonight. He is getting a little spicy. If slaves from that era saw how their descendants act
Yeah.
today, they probably would ask to be sent back to Africa, or maybe even ask to be kept enslaved. And I'm
I don't know
absolutely
about the
true.
second part,
Well,
but
you know
yeah.
what? You know what? Here's something I do find a little bit ironic. It's like, you do know that not all slaves were treated like you see on the
Right.
fucking
I know
TV,
that. Yeah.
right?
I
Right?
know.
Right? They
Yeah.
don't. They don't
Yeah.
understand that, right? They're every slave was whipped and beat and tortured. No, some of them were actually paid wages.
Yeah.
Some of them were kept in nice houses, and they weren't treated. They worked normal days. They weren't treated severely. They may have, they may have been considered owned, but
Right. They
they
absolutely were. And it's still an atrocity, even if
I
they
get
weren't
it.
treated as
I'm not
bad
saying,
as
and I'm
other
not trying
slaves.
to
I know.
justify it at
But we
all.
have to put out that disclaimer
Right,
because there are people who will
right.
take it and just be
I
like,
do
"Oh,
not
you
condone
fucking
slavery at all, but
right,
understand that the picture that's painted in Roots
yeah,
and other shows, this is not indicative of the majority of slaveholders.
right,
There were slaveholders that actually had respect for the slaves they owned. You know, I mean, close ties, friendships. You know,
oh yeah."
it happened.
But that's not something you're allowed to even make a nuanced argument about.
No, you can't, because of course you have to stick to the narrative that it was bad,
Right.
and all African Americans in the present day, 300 years later, must have reparations for how big of an atrocity it
Yeah.
was for all of their ancestors.
So what's funny is a lot of slaves did get reparations after they were freed. There's a whole big area in over by Charleston, South Carolina. That's all. It was they were all like former, slave reparations, the 40 acres and a mule thing. They're set up in like 40-acre plots, like 40. What is it?
Right,
20, not 20 by 20. Whatever the thing dimensions are. They were actually strips though. They were like,
right. I know what you're talking about.
yeah, yeah, and now they're most of them are just tree farms, but uh, yeah, I mean, a lot of them did get it.
Yeah,
And the big problem with it was that they knew how to farm because they were farmers for the most part. But what they didn't know was like the business side of it. After the harvest and trying to sell it, and a lot of them went under, weren't able to support themselves, and ended up selling the land.
right. And maybe that wasn't. I'm not going to say the wrong thing, but hey, maybe it would have been nice if you had given them some more education on how to function properly. Maybe if they'd had a little more education on how to do it right, they would have done better,
Right.
right?
Which
From
is
the
what
business aspect.
which is what the abolitionists were talking about. Abolitionism, despite what other people might say, was growing very quickly in the South. There were a lot of people in the South who were anti-slavery. Regardless of the stereotype that they were all slavers and whatnot. Um, but they were arguing for more like phased out slavery. One, to give the plantation owners time to adjust to a new system
Right.
and to educate the slaves on how to live outside of the
Sure.
plantation, and make them become normal members of society. So doing it that way, now obviously it's speculation, but doing it that way could have avoided most of like the Jim Crow laws, and the continued bigotry that happened, the resentment even
Right.
that happened after the Civil War was lost for the South. there was obviously a lot of resentment against slaves. So a
But
lot of that could have been avoided that way.
right,
Now, obviously, that's speculation. We don't know how it would have actually gone down,
sure.
but yeah,
But this is we talk about something like this, and it can easily be construed as that is the white man's narrative that has been written in the history books, right?
yeah,
Um, and fine, you want to make that argument, fine. But what I would put on you to do is this then, as an African American, go back and read texts and literature from the time that have
hmm,
survived to this present day. Look at letters that they have from slave owners, things like this, journals, etc., because these things exist. And I can
yeah,
guarantee you that it's not going to be the picture that you have painted in your head about what it was like back then.
yeah,
Um, but I would find it interesting. Now, check this out. I assume that whenever they were paying out reparations to those slaves as they were being freed, that they kept rolls. And
of yeah,
right, land rolls and everything of what land was given to them, et cetera, et cetera. That there would have been rolls put together for that, lists and information. So my guess is that there's a possibility that that information still exists today because it's surprising how much shit from back in the day is still
yeah.
around.
I mean, you wouldn't have complete records, I'm
Maybe
sure,
not
but
complete records, but I bet there are still
yeah,
records, right?
sure.
It would be interesting to look at a reparations from the standpoint of, okay, fine, we'll trace your lineage back. We'll give you a DNA test. We'll trace you back. We'll do the ancestry.com route. And for every African American that is not tied directly to individuals that were paid reparations after slavery was ended, those are the only people that would actually get reparations. Like
No,
if
I
you
get what you're
track
saying.
back and somebody got reparations in the form of 40 acres and a mule, guess what? You get nothing because they already got reparations.
Right, they got their reparations, but um, first of all, the bureaucracy behind doing that would be absolutely insane, and secondly, that's going to cause a lot of resentment in the African American community for other members of the African American community, right? I mean, aren't you going to be jealous if your neighbor just suddenly gets, a shitload of money and you don't get anything?
Builds character,
There's other ways to build character.
right? I
Yeah,
mean, you know what? It's another example of let's find out what you're made of. You want to argue for reparations? Well, guess what? Your family line already got it. So what do you do now? Yeah, I know that your buddy next door back. So yeah, he's owed reparations and he's got it. So what are you
yeah,
made of? Are you gonna go ahead and step up now and go get yourself out of this situation next door and beat somebody up in your community and take what they've got? Which
yep.
is it going to be? Prove who you are now, right? This is the thing that always amazes me is what a group is willing to do within its own community and try and justify it
Yeah.
and lay the blame on someone else and then bitch and moan because you're targeted for arrest, criminal activity. I mean, come on. What do you expect? I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, but it's this kind of mindset that is, running rampant in Minneapolis in a lot of people. Not necessarily as much through the home community, maybe, but all of these folks showing up out of different places, etc. Same thing in other cities. It's like, I was. It was interesting because I was. Where was it? Where was it at? Was it? What city was it in? Was it Colorado that I noticed it? Like, it was starkly white, the protests in Colorado. And I'm like, okay, I get it. You're outraged by someone dying at the hands of police brutality. However, I'm guessing that most of you don't have a similar axe to grind, similar experiences that are going to put you on an even playing field. So Yeah, you can protest. That's fine. It's your right. But you are ludicrous violent, which they
Yeah.
did. I mean, even in Denver, getting out of hand and turning it into rioting.
Yeah.
Why? Why are you doing that? Of all things, it's my opinion that you should be a protester, not a rioter, you know? Because if
Hmm.
you're ping-ponging off the back of someone else's anger at what they see through experience and circumstance and oppression as a viable reason for acting out, you
Yeah.
you don't most of y'all don't have you don't have a point of view that even comes near what they're going through.
Right.
So hold your signs up and keep your rocks on the fucking ground. And that's it's amazing to me why how people will get this mob mentality, this mimicry, to where they that white knight attitude. Oh, we need to. Oh, and they're rioting in Minneapolis, so let's get crazy here. We've got to show solidarity by rioting too.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I wasn't surprised by it in Kentucky because it happened
Right.
in Louisville, Kentucky. In fact, to the extent that upwards to 7 people were shot, not necessarily by the police, but there was gunfire exchanged in the city. But they were the no knock order resulted in a woman dying, African American woman. Well, yeah, okay, so they have a reason to jump on cause. L.A. I think springboarded because you don't let something like Rodney King go for that's probably just like historically taught in LA.
All right.
Um,
So hang on real quick. Just keep doing your thing. I'm gonna go take a piss.
no way. I'm gonna see what Seawall's been saying. Uh, Also, even if we just said fuck it and gave all the reparation, likely it would be blown very quickly. Now, that is potentially a mischaracterization, though. It is easy to let your mind go there, and I guess ultimately it's one of those things where it's like I hope that it doesn't seem racist that that my mind goes to that, but maybe it is. That's some of that racist brainwashing that we get inherently, that's hard to shake. Where from the stereotypical standpoint, that's the word. There it is. Stereotypes are just really hard to shake, and I understand stereotypes are there for a reason. Um, but it's like, maybe we would be proven wrong. Maybe that stereotype would get blown out if reparations were to come along, and at the same time handouts were removed. Like, this is the last handout you're going to get. You get nations. This is it. We draw the line. All social economic policies are taken away. We're going to get rid of welfare and food stamps, all of that. Here's your reparations. Maybe, just maybe, they would blow the stereotype out of the water and prove us wrong. But I don't know. Stereotypes are a hard one to shake for both sides because they do exist for a reason. I don't care how you shake it. Stereotypes, for whether it's
Right.
by race, by religion, by
Well, the thing
sexuality.
is, yeah, it's like all stereotypes aren't going to apply to all people at all times, right? But you can rest assured, I guess, that at least one
Uh,
stereotype will
oh,
be with each person.
Now he talks about example lottery winners. I
Lottery
see that
winners, yeah.
lottery winners, and I get that.
And it goes
Um,
back to something that Robert Heinlein said, which is that which is given freely has no value, and that's what that is, right? You just suddenly you've got what is it, $1.5 million, $2 million, whatever the lottery is at the moment.
mm,
That, well, it has no value to you because you haven't worked for it, other than scratching tickets or saying numbers.
well,
So it's not going to mean anything to you. You're just going to go and spend it.
can you
For the
make
most part, there are exceptions, of course. There are people who won the lottery and then kept working, or opened their own business or something like that. But generally speaking, people just blow the money.
right? And Ed says I prefer monaural types. Monaural.
Well, it's like one side of the speaker instead of like both. Yeah. As far as I know, that's what that means.
Fun fact: Tim Pool's Asian mom does math YouTube videos. Stereotypes exist for a reason. Andrew Yang
Yeah.
tells you, and basically said the same thing during his campaign. He's
Yeah.
like, I'm an Asian man that loves math. Go figure. Right?
Right.
I mean, hello. It's a thing, right? They exist. The stereotype you're talking about with poor inner city is cultural. And it is. A
Yeah,
lot
it
of it is
is.
cultural. Um,
It is.
but, I do think that much of this goes back to it's so rooted in complacency.
Yeah.
It's easier. It's just so easy to take that route, that that easy route of hand out money, mix it with some crime to get more money, and then lay the blame elsewhere. And because of whatever your race or economic situation is, you easily get to blame somebody. And you can make the argument, and you don't really care about pushback. You don't care about reasonable logical argument to the contrary. You're just, because, as for want of a better word, as lazy as you are about the rest of it, you're too lazy to listen to a conversation about it either way.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to say that, but it's true. If you're sucking on the tit of the federal government, refusing to get a job, refusing to get up and about your life besides blame everybody else for it, having more children so you get more money from the tit of the government, I have zero fucking sympathy for you at all. Zero. Because I got my own fucking problems. I got my
Yeah.
own fucking oppression. You want to talk about oppression? Great. Poverty oppresses lots of people. Poverty
No,
oppresses you,
no, no.
right? I mean, it's poverty. And nobody's heaping that poverty on your fucking shoulders. The mistake they're making is giving you an avenue to feel like you've got something, you're getting a handout
Well, not only
to
that, but
lift
you're
you
owed
up.
something.
Right, that you're
That's
owed
the
that.
biggest problem is that you're owed something.
Who the fuck owes anybody anything?
It's the same thing with like if someone asks me to borrow money, sure. But if someone says, "Hey, give me this much money," go fuck yourself. Like because it's that sense of entitlement, that ownership. I'm owed this money, so give it to me. It's like no, fuck you. But if someone asks to borrow it, yeah, I have no problem with that distinction.
Ed Ed has schooled me on monaural versus
And me apparently
stereophonic.
too, because I wasn't. Yeah,
I know mono as like in speaker setup, but it just says mono. Didn't have the
yeah,
it doesn't
not
have the
mono.
aural there. It's like mono or Dolby 5.1 surround. Um, well, with these speakers, I'll just go with mono. Mono stereo or Dolby 5.1 has got those.
Right.
Let me go with stereo. I've got three speakers. Nope, just one speaker. Fuck it. I'll just go with mono because that sounds right. Little did I
Right.
know that I can run stereo through that, and maybe I'll get a little better sound. Yeah, that's all
It's true,
technical
Seawall.
jargon.
Poor kids are just as smart as white kids. It's
It's,
true.
poor kids can be just as smart as white kids.
That's
Because
right.
guess what? White kids can be just as fucking stupid as poor kids can
That's right.
be. And I hate, I get the mockery of it, but there is, what are you fucking underselling yourself for? Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
That, what? You, fuck it. I don't know, John. I scratch my all the time, and but mostly when it comes across in this way, when it's used as, George Floyd was a stepping stone to launching into these larger issues. Like, if this was all about George Floyd, hear a fucking thing about oppression. I should not hear a thing about your economic standing.
Sure.
Fuck all that. I shouldn't hear that. This should be police brutality, and that's it. Anything else,
There we go.
you're fucking up
Okay.
the argument. You're just clouding the whole fucking playing field. It's screwed up. Um, so
There we go. Okay.
And so therefore, I don't have really any support or sympathy for what's
Hang on. I
going
think
on there.
we're down on YouTube. Let me see.
I'm showing online from
Okay.
my end.
Yeah, yeah. No, we're technically on, but it's like real.
Oh, it looks like there's maybe I'm getting it's possible I am experiencing some internet difficulty that has been happening some during this lockdown as you know there are more people online because of
Yeah,
course you know how providers hub the internet service. I'm sure there's a ton of people going online, so maybe I'm having some difficulty with that. Please, internet difficulties. It's nothing to do with anything else, and I can't really do anything about internet bubbles of issue bullshit.
yeah. I mean, we can cut it short in like 10 minutes if you want. That way we don't continue on with the issues.
Yeah, yeah. So we can kind of round it out. That's see right now it's showing I've got good full strong stream. Again, it may have just been a hiccup. One thing I will say about my internet is that it can have a hiccup in service, and
Yeah,
it still manages to maintain a little bit of online. Like it's still, like our
right.
stream is still going and still outputting, and a little bit of that is carrying through. But like right now, it says that we're full and strong and back to normal. I've got no red, yellow, or orange, but it is now it's starting to spike again. So
Yeah,
yeah,
we should
I
just
don't
go
mind.
ahead and
I don't.
yeah, cut it short, I
That's
guess.
fine. We're not too far
We
off the
said what we
mark from
wanted
a
to say
show.
anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and look. I will say this: if the rioting comes to your town, do yourself a favor. While it may be tempting to go out there in it and do spot reporting and stuff, just be careful if you do. These are crazy situations that are going on,
Yep.
and of a volatile nature that you go one way or the other. I mean, when all bets are off when you see a woman running around, a white woman running around screaming, "Kill all whites! Kill all whites!"
Yeah.
Really? Then you know it's just mass. It's just chaos from there. John, these people can find us and talk to us, and maybe even find. Tonight we might have some discussion in Discord. Can you point them in those directions, please?
Yes, all of it is down below in the description. We've got our link to our Twitter, which is at the Gen Gap P. With the link to the Discord server, super spicy, super times over there.
Been a spicy day today.
It has been a spicy like couple of weeks actually. Um, and then we've got our freedom there. We can go check out our stuff and other creators like Jay Edgar who's in the chat there. We've got Wyatt from Roundtable Decision. We've got Mr. RRC is over there. He was in the chat earlier. Got Stephen Ignoramus. And the Freckles and Brit show is over there as well. So make sure you go and check that stuff out because they're awesome. And while you're over there, you can buy our merch. Specifically, don't buy anybody else's merch. Just buy our merch. Uh, we got T-shirts. We got the mug. Make sure you do that, and then at checkout, put in the code, whatever the promo code Gen Gap, and you'll get 15% off of your purchase, which is pretty awesome.
Elephant Man, I believe that dislike was hit before the show. I don't know. Well,
It
John
was
said it
like
was
just
like
after,
just
yeah.
after the show started, but it was
I don't know who
these
the second one
valueless.
was either. I don't know when that happened, but we have two dislikes apparently. We suck
Two
now.
dislikes. Oh my
I know
goodness.
it's crazy.
Who's been showing up
We
in the
might as well
chat?
just give up. We've had two dislikes now. I think
We
we're I
should just
think we're
quit.
just done.
We just
Yeah.
quit.
Let's get off
We'll
YouTube.
just quit.
God damn it.
But anyway, yeah. So we will be back on Monday night for a regular shooting the shit episode. Keep an eye out for us then. That'll be at 9:30 p.m. on Monday night. We'll also be back again next week, barring any crazy that might go on between now and then, at our normal time here at 8:30. And we'll be having another rousing episode. Hopefully, we can get back to talking about the coronavirus. Good Lord.
Oh God,
You
fuck
know.
that. No. No.
Hey, to talk about it a
I
little
was
bit
sick
because
of it when this shit
Universal
started.
Studios is opening on the 5th, John.
Oh,
They are opening up.
snapperoonie.
They are opening up. They're going to have a theme park open, three theme parks opening up here in Orlando
That's
on
so
the
horrible.
5th.
Why do they want my Gammy Num Nums to die? I don't understand.
Well,
I
she's kind of
know.
annoying. So,
Yeah, I
all
know.
right. So, hey, folks, I appreciate everyone who showed up and has been having some great chat with us and throwing lots of information out there. It's good to see a lot of spicy seawall happening this evening, which is always fun. Uh, uh, and again, we'll put the disclaimer out there. All of the stuff we say is really unimportant, and we disavow everything that might
Yeah.
seem Anyway contentious. It's
Anything that offends you or that you disagree with, we disavow.
right.
Yeah.
But if you agree with it, we are so right there with you.
Yeah, 100% on your
Right.
side, yeah.
But having said that, keep an eye out for us in Discord. Who knows? You might see us jumping into some voice chat here later on. Until then, everybody have yourself a great night. Stay safe out there. Do the right things. And we'll see you later. Peace.
See you guys.
The war will begin.